Hi, everyone. My name is Megan, and I'm a medical student at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. This is how to be a super friend at home. Today, we are talking about learning disabilities. It's okay if you don't know what that means right now. By the end of the 3 videos about learning disabilities, I bet that you'll have a much better idea. But before we talk about learning disabilities, I thought it would be very helpful if first we just talked about learning. So I want you to imagine something with me. I want you to pretend that right now you are in your math class. And in your math class, your teacher is teaching a new lesson. So just picture it. And maybe it looks something like one of these pictures. All these pictures are a little bit different, and maybe what's in your head doesn't match any of these. That's totally fine. Just picture a math class in your head. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to ask you a few questions. So think back to the pictures or think back to what you were thinking in your head. What ways did the teachers make learning easier? What were they doing to help their students learn? So there was a lot of pictures that I showed. I remember some of the pictures the teachers were teaching off of a chalkboard or a whiteboard. So they were probably writing out problems, maybe writing out notes for their students to copy. And then some of the other pictures were much more interactive. So what I mean by that is the teacher wasn't just talking about math or writing about math. They actually had different objects to illustrate math. So to teach maybe addition, they were using blocks or a number line to show students the different values of numbers. I think what's really cool about all those different pictures is that the teachers are very aware that all students learn a little bit differently because every brain is unique. Some students do just as fine learning from a chalkboard, but others really need to see the blocks or the number line to better understand why they're doing math and why math matters. And I think that's so cool. And I also want you to think, what helps you learn? Are you a person that likes a chalkboard? Do you like videos? That's personally what I like. Sometimes if I was confused on something in school, or even now in medical school, I will go and look for a video about the concept. And that tends to help clear things up for me. And then I can remember that video when I'm taking my test about the different subjects. Okay, so now we are going to talk about learning disabilities. And a learning disability is just something that someone may have where their brain learns a little bit differently. They are not sick at all, and they are very smart. A learning disability has nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with how smart someone is or how well someone can do in school, how well their grades turn out. It has nothing to do with that. Someone with a learning disability may just have to learn different strategies to better help them understand a certain subject. Sometimes people with learning disabilities are in your classroom with you and you actually have no idea. That's because they've realized that they have a learning disability and maybe they've talked to a counselor, maybe a doctor, maybe a guidance counselor, and that person has helped them think of strategies to help them learn best. So maybe they have a learning disability in math, but they've learned that as long as they write out the problem or use a number line, that will help them solve the problem. So there may be people in your classroom that have learning disabilities, and you just don't know about it. Other times, people with learning disabilities may leave your classroom for a little bit. They may have one-on-one instruction with one teacher, or they work in smaller groups, maybe with a teacher on their reading skills or their math skills, even on their English skills if they're learning a new language. So sometimes people with a learning disability get a little bit of extra support, but will come back in your classroom at certain points in a day. And other times, someone with a learning disability in your class may be in the class all day, and then after school, they have a tutor or they're just doing extra practice so that they really get their concepts down. But like I said, someone with a learning disability is not sick at all. And there are actually very many types of learning disabilities. Today, we are going to talk about dyslexia. And dyslexia can affect the way that someone reads and writes. One of my very best friends actually has dyslexia, and she shared with me a little bit about what it's like to have it. So someone with dyslexia absolutely can learn how to read and write. My friend, for example, loves reading. She absolutely loves it. But maybe it takes her a little bit longer to get through a page than it does for me. Or maybe when she's writing a paper, she has more spelling mistakes than I do, but as long as she goes back and checks it through, she's able to get all A's on her paper. She's actually in graduate school now, so clearly she's doing well in school and is able to succeed even with dyslexia. But dyslexia can be kind of hard to picture, so I am going to actually show you what it can look like sometimes. So I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint here, and just one second. Okay, so here's my PowerPoint. So someone with dyslexia may have trouble reading from left to right like we normally do. So see the sentence at the top of my screen? It says, let's spell these words backwards. I didn't read it backwards words these spell let's, because my brain knows that reading goes from left to right. Someone with dyslexia, their brain may have trouble remembering to do it that way. And that's sometimes why it takes them a little bit longer to get through a page. Sometimes reading from left to right or right to left may not matter. So I want to show you, if we spell these words backwards that I have here, mom, dad, and I, let's see how they look backwards. Mom, dad, and I, they're actually the same, right? They're spelled the same way forwards and backwards. So if my friend was to read the word mom from right to left, she would still get the same word. So in your head, you may be thinking, well, I guess dyslexia doesn't really affect how someone reads. But let's look at some more words. So here I have star and stump. If I try spelling them backwards, I get rats and pots. So it's still a word, but it's not the same word. And if you're reading a story about stars and then all of a sudden your brain is talking about rats, can you imagine how confusing that would be? Or let's pretend I'm just trying to read any word backwards, like these. If I read this word these backwards, it gets like that word doesn't make sense. So can you imagine how difficult that may be at times for someone to read? People with dyslexia over time learn how to overcome these challenges. They may learn that they have to break up reading into smaller chunks, and that helps them get through the page. Maybe they read line by line, maybe they cover the words underneath with a piece of paper so they can just focus on that specific line right there. And like I said, my friend with dyslexia loves reading. So she's obviously able to read just like I am. She's just had to learn how to do it in a way that really helps her. And then I wanted to show you one more thing. So my friend with dyslexia, she actually is okay. She thinks her reading is okay, but she's noticed more issues with her writing. So I have this sentence here. This may be something that she typed out. When she goes back and edits her paper, she often has a lot of spelling mistakes. And that's just because when she's picturing the word in her head, it doesn't always translate onto the paper when she's going to type it. So as long as she uses spell check, as long as she checks her work very carefully, she's able to type some really awesome papers. And like I said, she got all A's last semester, so clearly she's doing really well. But you can picture someone with dyslexia just may take a little bit more time on an assignment, but that doesn't mean they can't do an excellent job. And then I also wanted to mention there's some conditions kind of similar to dyslexia where people see numbers backwards. So can you imagine if you were doing a math problem and you got your answer 1, 2, 3, 4, but you accidentally wrote it 4, 3, 2, 1? That would be so frustrating if you did all the work correctly. And then for some reason, your brain just wrote it backwards. So like I mentioned, people with dyslexia absolutely can be successful, but it may be frustrating for them at times. So I found a video for you that I think is very, very helpful, and it illustrates what dyslexia can be like in someone's brain if they do have it. So if you want to learn more about dyslexia, all you need to do is go on to YouTube. So if you go on YouTube, and at the top, if you just type in, see dyslexia differently, you type that in and you scroll down a little bit, the first video that pops up is this one by the British Dyslexia Association. And it's only 3 minutes long, and I highly recommend it. I think it really shows what goes on in someone's brain who has dyslexia. And at the end of the day, like I keep saying, someone with dyslexia is not sick. And someone with dyslexia, their brain does work and they are smart and they can be so incredibly successful. This video actually mentions so many famous people who have dyslexia. They just have to learn through lots of hard work how they best learn. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this video today. I'm going to make some more videos about other learning disabilities, and I hope you'll tune in. Have a good day. Bye.